Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 39 of our WWE 2021 save in TEW 2020. This is Raw for week 3 in September. Only a couple episodes of Raw away from Unforgiven. And as we'll discuss later in the episode, Unforgiven is going to be a pretty big pay-per-view for Raw specifically, and will really sort of set the direction for this particular brand for the months to come. Let's see how things unfold here on this episode. We start with the pre-show with Angel Garza getting the win over Akira Tozawa 7-10. 53, I think this is the second time we've had these two have a singles match in our save, and I want to say it was about the same the last time. We keep talking about it. Tozawa's going to give us good matches, and it just, we just don't really have anything for him creatively, but we know he'll give us decent enough matches, and so we put him in this. We do still have plans for Angel Garza. Again, as I just hinted at, you will start to see that play out with him here in the coming months. But for now, he gets a win on the pre-show over Tozawa. And now let's jump into the main show, which starts with our WWE Champion, Edge, and his cohort, Randy Orton. Rated RKO here, and 91. Great start to the show. And it is these two we see in a segment. You remember last episode of Raw, it ended with all the enemies of these two sort of coming to their own, seeing their reality now, and understanding that they have a lot of people that are very upset with them based on what happened at SummerSlam and the fallout before that, after that, all that good stuff. And now they start to realize there are a lot of people coming after them. But tonight, one of those people in particular is going to get his shot at Randy Orton, and that is going to be Dominik Mysterio, who, as we know, that was one of the parts of the build leading up to everything that's happened with Edge and Orton, was Orton's, actions against Dominik months ago, and now we're going to get a one-on-one match between the two. So it will be Randy Orton and Dominik Mysterio in our main event, and these two are basically saying, look, they realize they have all these enemies now, they knew this was going to happen, but they're always prepared, and they always know what they need to do to make sure that they stay at the top. And they say they're going to do just that. But tonight, it's going to start with Randy Orton ending Dominik Mysterio's career like he should have done the last time. But they're really going to do that this time. They're going to make sure that Dominik is eliminated, and that'll be one less problem they have to deal with moving forward. So a nice setup here for our main event between Orton and Dominik. And, we'll see what happens with that. But great segment to start the show here. And then we start with our first match, which is a six-man tag. It is John Morrison and the Dirty Dogs getting a win over Angelo Dawkins and the New Day in 15:28. So gave this match a little bit of time. When I looked around at the stats and such, it really was kind of supported with all these guys being able, to have a pretty lengthy match of some sort. Even though, it's not too lengthy, 15 minutes, but it is actually Rude getting the pin on Dawkins, and that gets to 57. Not a great match here, but as we keep talking about, that is going to have a lot to do with popularity, and these two are clearly the most over when it comes to Kofi and Xavier. Meanwhile, Morrison, Dirty Dogs, Angelo Dawkins, they're all in that 50-ish range, low 60s. So 57 overall, not bad. And, we're building towards different things here. And you'll see it again. You'll see some things play out in this episode. You'll see some more things play out in the next episode, and certainly in Unforgiven. But these are kind of the building blocks to the things we're working towards. So we decided to put these guys together in this. And I know it was mentioned too, I think Ben mentioned in the comments, something we've been doing a lot is, we have been kind of splitting off Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford in different matches and such. And that's intentional because we do have different plans, in a sense, for both of them. But they're still a tag team. They're still the Street Profits. And you'll see kind of what the direction is going to be for these guys moving forward. But I do like the opportunity to do that more. And I think we've done that with other tag teams as well. But I think it's specifically seeing now, all right, this is kind of where we're at with the Street Profits. And there are different things that each of them are going to be put into that don't necessarily have to involve the one or the other. And I think that can be something that gives you a little bit more flexibility with the booking. And I think that's really going to pay off for us based on what we have in the works for both of these two guys. So 57 overall, but it is Dawkins taking the pin as Rude gets the win to give the Dirty Dogs a little bit more momentum, seemingly into that match they're going to have with the New Day here coming up. And then that leads us into a segment with Steve Austin, our Raw GM, and it is Cesaro coming in saying that he wants his shot at Edge. We saw Cesaro as part of the, piranhas seemingly circling the ring last week at the end of the show. He's someone that has his own, revenge to get on Edge after it was clearly made clear that Edge was the one that attacked Cesaro or Orton. They don't really know, but they know it's one of these two. So Cesaro wants to be able to get that revenge. But then Sheamus comes in, and Sheamus states that, hey, he also has his own bone to pick with Edge because even though Sheamus was not one of the ones that were part of those, mysterious backstage attacks, Sheamus points out that, hey, Edge attacked me with a chair after that tag team match that involved Sheamus and Lashley. And so he, it was against Bryan and Mysterio. But Sheamus is like, look, I've got my own reason to go after Edge. So kind of an interesting dynamic here. And again, it'll make more sense in the weeks ahead with these two, in particular in terms of the storyline. But interesting setup here. And so Austin says, you know what? You guys are right. Like, both of you guys clearly have a bone to pick with Edge. And I can understand both of your cases. And so we're going to get Cesaro versus Sheamus at Unforgiven. And the winner will get a championship match against Edge on an upcoming episode of Raw. So that is the setup there. So we add another big match to the card, as it will be Cesaro and Sheamus going one-on-one with the winner getting a WWE Championship match against Edge in the next several weeks on Raw. So that's going to lead to some fun stuff, and I'm excited about this one. I think this could be a really good match. And I just, we haven't had this match before on the save. We haven't had Cesaro versus Sheamus one-on-one. And I think that this is going to be, a lot of fun, especially for where we're going with it and all that. So looking forward to that one. But these two will also be in action a little bit later on in a tag team match. And then we get an MVP interview here as Corey Graves catches up with MVP. And MVP first notes that, look, he has no idea where Bobby Lashley is. Lashley, was clearly angry after the match last week where he lost that triple threat main event between Edge, Daniel Bryan, and Lashley, and he wanted to regain his championship. MVP hasn't heard from him. He has no idea where Lashley is. Now, obviously, if you've been following the save, we pointed out Lashley has officially retired. But I am leaving that a little open-ended because I do think there will probably come a time where there's a possibility where perhaps we can talk him into coming out of retirement, and I want to leave that as an option. So we're playing that in as a storyline here. Just to, instead of just completely, making Lashley disappear and that's it, we did want to at least address it here in this particular scenario, and that's why we put MVP into the spot we're putting him in. So he addresses that here and says, look, I don't know where Lashley is, but all he knows is MVP's got to get back in the ring tonight. He's focused on his match he's going to have against Montez Ford, and that's what MVP can focus on. So that is where things stand with that. And speaking of that match, it gets a 54, not great, and I kind of expected this. And I think our matches on this show are not going to do great ratings, but I've said this so many times before. It's like, sometimes I realize that some of our shows are going to be that way. It won't be all of them. There are kind of a little bit the way the roster's built now, and I think especially over the next month specifically, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. When I say over the next month, I mean probably the next month. You'll see that our roster is going to be a little bit more different, and there could be some possibilities of what we can work with in terms of how our roster's set up, face, heel-wise. And so I think that there's a lot more kind of juicy matchups we're going to be able to jump into. And we had that last week. I mean, we had 3 really, top shelf sort of matches last week. And although this week is sort of not, it's not going to match that, I just think that's going to be the case where there are going to be some weeks like this where some of our matches are not going to do great ratings. But they're there for a reason. They're there to advance some of our stories, and I'm fine with that. That serves the purpose. And it is Montez Ford getting the win over MVP here. 954, the Frog Splash. So Montez Ford gets another victory. And again, he is someone else who has that claim towards going after Edge at some point based on what kind of played out with the whole attacks and everything. But this gives Montez Ford a nice win here over MVP, and we'll see what MVP's response is and what he does moving forward with Lashley out of the picture. And then a great segment here, not surprising at all. 82 overall. as it is Bayley. We see Bayley, Sasha backstage. Becky is there. We see kind of some officials surrounding them, making sure nothing's going to happen here. They kind of see where this could head. And Bayley says she's not going to do anything to Becky. She's not going to touch her. She's not going to attack her. Nothing. They're not going to do anything to give themselves the upper hand. And she's specifically saying themselves, as though this is a handicap match that we're going to get at Unforgiven with Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks. But as we know, it's a singles match. But it's Bayley basically saying Becky has no shot to beat Sasha Banks at Unforgiven. And then whenever Sasha wins the match, she and Sasha will go one-on-one, and Bayley will obviously retain her championship because she is the champion. And Sasha kind of gives her the side eye again with Bayley. You know, Bayley, she likes to say, oh, I'm just joking and all this. We'll have a great match and all this. And she just kind of, taps the title a bit, pointing out that, hey, it's her title. She's going to keep the title. And it's up to one of these two to try to take it from her, even though Sasha is her friend. So it's kind of, we've teased this before, right, with the tension a little bit between Bayley and Sasha. And we'll see how that plays into things moving forward here. But this is basically Bayley and Sasha sticking together right here to say, look, Becky, it's 1-on-2. There's no way you're going to be able to walk out and get the win at Unforgiven. And Bayley is excited, just over the top, and she's very exaggerating at the point that her match with Sasha Banks for the championship is going to be great. So, fun dynamic here. There's a lot more to work with. Looks like Sasha didn't do well without a script to follow. That's fine. But good segment here. This is what we want. It advances kind of the story between these two in this match we're going to have an Unforgiven. And, of course, Bayley's involvement because she is the champion. And the winner will get a match with Bayley for the Raw Women's title. And now we get to a segment here with AJ Styles, 77. So AJ struggles going off script. We don't usually get that either, but it happens. It is AJ Styles saying, here's the deal. We saw what happened last week. He got his shot at Kevin Owens, but it ended in the double pinfall. So the way AJ sees it, Kevin Owens never beat him. And AJ says he's already said it over the past couple weeks. He knew he needed to change his direction, to change his focus, and he wants one more shot at Kevin Owens. And he says, look, he knows he attacked Kevin Owens after the match, but his anger got the best of him, and he wants a straight-up one-on-one match. Kevin Owens, the rematch at Unforgiven, no shenanigans. AJ says he needs to prove that he is the best and that he still got it, and he wants to do that with one more match because Owens never beat him, and if Owens is a real champion, he'll give him that one more match for the United States title at Unforgiven. So that is AJ's plea to Kevin Owens. We'll see what Kevin Owens' response is, and we will find that out on this episode of Raw a little bit later on. And another match here, 57 overall. So, and again, as I said, these matches all in the 50s thus far. Not great, but it's okay. This is a very sort of story-based episode of Raw with a lot of angles that are needing to play up to stories. Because to add to that, too, remember, I've mentioned this before, the struggle and the challenge is that we've only had 3-4 weeks, I guess, to build up this Unforgiven pay-per-view. That's going to be a challenge. I think anytime we come off of one of these dual-branded shows like a SummerSlam and then have to go straight to that, branded show, whoever is that brand, which in this case is Raw, like there's going to be a lot that has to be thrown in story-wise, like to get to those points we want to get to for the next pay-per-view. And so I think you kind of see that here with Raw, and that's why, again, 57 overall, not great here. But it is Io Shirai getting the win over Sonya Deville, but it is via disqualification as Shayna Baszler runs in and attacks Io Shirai. So I just really wanted to feel this out here. I was curious to see if we'd have any chemistry between these two. Sonya off her game, so that didn't help. But we still have Sonya getting the groundswell of public support, so that's helping her there. But I'm more, I said this, like the Women's Tag Team Championship thing is going to be a struggle for now, just based on the lack of teams that we have. But the good news is we do have some pretty fun long-term plans. It's actually going to involve Sonya. It's going to involve Shayna. It's going to involve Io Shirai. There's a lot of stuff we're working towards, but this is kind of that slow thing with the women's tag titles right now. It is just like we're doing the best we can, and look, we got a match to build towards. And speaking of that, after the match, as we said, Baszler and Deville, they're kind of getting the upper hand on Io Shirai. Liv Morgan runs in and we've got a brawl between these four here. So that is our WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match at Unforgiven, as it will be Baszler and Deville defending against Io Shirai and Liv Morgan. We'll see how things unfold from there. I've started to kind of tweak a couple things, the direction we're going with these Women's Tag Team Championships, but still, the overall plan that I kind of had in place in the beginning is still there. It's just, it's a longer build because we just don't have the depth in the women's tag team divisions right now. And really, we don't, I mean, we said it before, like, we don't necessarily have the depth in a certain sense, like on each brand from a women's division standpoint, but that is starting to get a little bit better, and I think that will continue to get better as we move forward. But there's the setup. These four, we know we're going to get tag team match for the championship at Unforgiven. And now we get Big E here as Corey Graves talking about this is rant about how much he hates Goldberg. I think we picked the rant one. We used the whatever one is about the rant. Obviously, it's not Big E ranting about how much he hates Goldberg because we know Big E's not really going to do that. This is all based off of Big E saying last week, Goldberg was kind of hinting at potentially retiring, didn't think that he could just do anything else in wrestling, and he was thinking after that loss to Kevin Owens he should retire. Big E, says, hey, how about you give me one more match? Because Big E, says Goldberg's one of the reasons he got into wrestling. Goldberg was, the person that inspired him. He's always looked at Goldberg as a legend. Goldberg's still a legend. Big E wants that one opportunity to get in the ring with Goldberg because he thinks Goldberg still is a legend, and he wants that. He wants to prove that in the ring with those two squaring off one-on-one. And Graves asked Big E, have you heard anything from Goldberg? And Big E says, no response yet. He hasn't heard anything, but he says he keeping confidence that he will get that match with Goldberg. So Big E says all he can do is each week he's going to come out here and he's going to keep talking about it. He's going to keep talking about this match with Goldberg, and he's going to will it into being a reality. And so as of now, though, Big E says no match, nothing set up. And so that's kind of where things stand on that. So 76 overall. Corey Graves underwhelming here, so that doesn't help. We could have just did the Big E by himself, I suppose, but we just added Graves in here as kind of the second man to kind of add to the story of it. But that is where things stand with Big E and his quest for a match with Goldberg. And okay, so this match a little bit better, not great, 68 overall, but we'll take it. As it is Big E and Cesaro getting the win over Sheamus and Mustafa Ali in 14:31. Big E gets the win over Ali here using the big ending. Cesaro getting better at his gimmick, so that's good to know. And good performances here from pretty much everyone. I mean, Ali's still on the lower part of that scale, but, we just had the big blow-off match between Cesaro and Ali last week. That was part of that sort of mega edition of Raw. And now, Ali tries to get back on track here, can't do it. Big E gets the win. So a nice little tag team match, putting these guys together in this, scenario. And we're going to do that sometimes. Like, there's just going to be some times where we have, kind of stories that clash together. We're going to put them in a tag team match, and we'll see what it does. And that's kind of what we did here. But we know where things are headed. Cesaro and Sheamus and Unforgiven. What's next for Ali? We know Big E has Goldberg on his mind. So a lot of different things kind of being juggled here in this one. 68, would have liked that to be a little bit better, but I mean, we know. Probably because Ali, his overness is not great. That probably brought it down just a little bit for this one. And then it's Kevin Owens. We heard earlier, AJ Styles said that he wants that match. And Kevin Owens says, you know what? He did not like being attacked after his match against AJ Styles. And he says, you know what? That's because now he has to get his own revenge on AJ. Because whether AJ won, lost, draw, he didn't care. He's not going to stand back and get attacked by anyone after the match. And that is Owens saying, all right, you're right. He said, I didn't pin you, and I will give you one more shot at the United States Championship. So Kevin Owens says he's a fighting champion. He'll go out, and he has proven that with the U.S. title open challenge and all this, and he's going to prove it again. He will give AJ Styles another shot because Kevin Owens needs to prove to himself that he can beat AJ Styles. He's not going to settle for a double pinfall, and by attacking him after the match, AJ gives Kevin Owens a little bit more ammunition to have this rematch. So it's set up. It's going to be Kevin Owens, AJ Styles in a rematch for the United States Championship at Unforgiven. We saw, again, last week, really great match they had. I think there's an opportunity we have to top that at Unforgiven, so that adds another potentially really great match to our Unforgiven card. And Owens, as always, delivers on the mic. 81 overall here. And now to our main event, 64 again. I mean, I said it, like, this is just one where the matches are kind of secondary in a sense on this particular episode. Won't always be that way, but it is Randy Orton getting the win over Dominik Mysterio, 12-27, hitting the RKO. And Ray, of course, ringside with Dominik here to kind of help him out. And we did, to try to bring this up as much as we could, because you see Dominik with a performance of 48 here. We did try to, kind of protect Dominik a little bit, limit some of the things, and just kind of, play to the strengths, basically, is what we did, kind of booking this with this outcome. But clearly, Orton's getting the win here, and that is really, again, just to sort of build up the fallout from it, which is, oh, this is great, 92 overall, fantastic stuff here. Daniel Bryan and Rey Mysterio hit the ring after the match, and they have decided they're not waiting any longer to go after Edge and Orton, and they do. They attack Edge, they attack Orton. They both, hit all their big moves, and we get the 619. We get all kinds of stuff, and that sends Edge and Orton out of the ring. They're reeling, shaking their heads. They're just angry. But before they can head out completely, Stone Cold Steve Austin comes on out and says, this is a little disappointing, 83. I would have liked that to be a little bit better. Austin says, all right, this is all he needs to see. He has made a decision, and he's glad that all four of these guys are out here because it's a perfect time for him to announce that at Unforgiven, it will be Edge defending the WWE Championship against Rey Mysterio, and it will be Randy Orton going one-on-one with Daniel Bryan, the person who essentially, Orton, cost Bryan the championship at SummerSlam with everything that happened with Edge. And so Edge, Orton, very upset. They're not happy about this at all. But they now have a reason to get their revenge on these guys who just came out and attacked them. But as they start to walk out, Austin starts to walk out and says, "Oh, wait, 1 second. I forgot to say something." Austin says that Edge and Rey Mysterio will be inside a steel cage. So, a steel cage match. And so that really upsets Edge and Orton. They're shaking their heads. Edge wants to know, why is this inside of a steel cage? And so Austin goes to leave, and then he does it again. He's like, oh, wait a second. I forgot to add something else. He says that it will be, Edge versus Rey Mysterio inside a steel cage, and it will be with Randy Orton at ringside. And so Edge is shaking his head. All right, well, that's good to know. But Austin goes, oh, wait, I meant Randy Orton at ringside, handcuffed to the cage so that there's no interference at all. And Austin says he will be the person that is in charge of the key. So that is kind of your setup there. So we know kind of, everything with Edge and Orton and interference and that kind of stuff. Austin just really playing it up here. Like he gets these guys an emotional roller coaster to where they are not happy. So it's going to be Edge and Rey Mysterio in our main event in Unforgiven inside a steel cage. Randy Orton. Austin says, hey, I don't care if you lose, you win, doesn't matter what happens against Daniel Bryan. You're going to come out and you're going to be handcuffed to the cage. So that is our setup. That gives us two more big matches for Unforgiven. The Unforgiven card really has come together. And like I said, I am getting more and more excited about this show because I think it's going to really lead to some big things on Raw, as if we already don't have big things on Raw. But I am really excited about the direction on this, and as you see, we've got two more big matches added here on this. So that was Raw, and 74, not surprised, this loses the popularity. We gained popularity somewhere, so that's good to know. But the setup here was that this was a very angle-heavy show because, again, we basically have 4 shows to build up Unforgiven, so we're having to cram a lot of stuff in. We just kind of have to speed along and try to put as much in as we can. And that means angles. We have to kind of build the stories up. And I think our Unforgiven show is going to be, I'm trying to think. I'm like, all right, we've had King of the Ring, Great American Bash, SummerSlam, Unforgiven. I mean, Unforgiven's going to be our second biggest show, like behind SummerSlam. Like it's going to be a significant show. So, I'm excited about that. I've teased it enough. Let's see what we need to get to before we wrap up. All right, so the feedback from Raw is great. We didn't strike gold. Very unusual there for us, as we know. But contract-wise, Zack Sabre Jr. staying with New Japan, that was one that we did look into, but ultimately decided not to. Ortiz, we talked about that on a previous episode, also didn't decide to sign him. So he stays with AEW. Let's see what we got in the mail. So Ortiz staying with AEW. Zack Sabre staying with New Japan. Riddle's contract is ending. So I know what, if you're just like thinking about it, it's like, wait a second, why have we not seen Riddle? Remember, if you go back to the very start of our save, we noted that he is still considered toxic due to the fallout of a scandal. So he is not, but we haven't been able to use him at all, because if we do that, that's going to, kind of give us a little bit of a bump, kind of go in the wrong direction popularity-wise, and it'll knock our ratings from shows and stuff. So we're just kind of waiting and seeing how long that's going to take. I'm kind of, pretty much dedicated to it at this point. We will not bring him back probably until that is the case. So we will see if that changes, but obviously we're going to re-sign him. So if we look at our contract here, and wow, so being recorded using pro-Nazi imagery and language, having him on your roster will affect your attendance levels and sponsorship revenue. So I forgot about that. Like, that is something I was just thinking, like, oh yeah, that's right. Now when we do the contract, that is something that's going to come up, and here it is. So, I mean, we've got to make a decision here. Is this something that we are going to do? And what's going to be the fallout here with Riddle? Because he is obviously someone that we would love to have, just based off of all of his talents and skills, and like, look at his star quality. It's an 80. So this is an interesting scenario here with this, because if we do bring him back, and he's on the roster, attendance level, that kind of stuff, sponsorship revenue, if we don't bring him back, how does that improve? And obviously we don't have to really worry about money, because we have all the money we need with WWE. So, but this is an interesting setup. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet. We're going to put in a contract here, but we're going to see kind of maybe what comes of this. We're going to give him a 2-year deal. But we'll have to look. I mean, we may have to think about this. Once he decides that, okay, he's going to do it, he wants higher merch, all right. And maybe we'll have to make a decision on what we do with Riddle. So that is interesting. We'll obviously talk about that in future videos. But Bayley has an opinion. Oh, Omos. Bayley, a big Omos fan. So that's interesting. So we see that Omos considered a star in the making, which I guess when you look at his star quality, 79 overall. So, I mean, Omos's stats here are not bad either. I mean, obviously these are not great when you talk about just the actual wrestling skills, but there are ways I think we can use Omos more moving forward. And as you'll see, there is something that we do have in mind for Omos, but it's going to take a little time to get there. But for now, at least we know Bayley is behind Omos, and that is good to know, since we do have some plans for him in the future. Draft testing fees, Raw figure 3.39. So there's that. So that was Raw. Like I said, not our best show, but I think from a storyline-wise, it did everything we wanted to accomplish. And for me, that's really all that matters when it comes to building to this Unforgiven pay-per-view, because I am really thrilled about the possibilities with it. It's just going to, again, set the direction for Raw moving forward, and really going to start some programs and continue some programs that are going to be kind of the flagship part of Raw for the next several months. Some will even last much longer than that. So I'm excited about that, and we'll see how things continue to unfold on that. So as always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And on the next episode, it will be SmackDown, and shortly after that, we will be starting the second save on the channel with 1998, which that was the one we did in the previous video. That seems to be the winner here, and so we will be doing that here very soon. But again, as always, love the feedback, appreciate it, and yes, the road to Unforgiven continues. It's going to be a great show. I know I hyped that up with SummerSlam all those months, but like I'm even just as excited about Unforgiven, because I think there's going to be some big things that come out of that show, and some big talking points probably for all of us coming out of it, because of just some of the things it's going to do storyline wise. So that is Raw, and yes, on the next episode we will head into September week 3 edition of SmackDown with a big main event: Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against Damian Priest. So that's going to be a fun one. So we'll be looking at SmackDown on the next episode.